under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, everyone is accounted for except the mayor, and I am filling in for him tonight. So at this time, if I would ask everybody to silence their electronic devices so they're not interrupting the meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda or additions.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution 2020-10, acceptance of January donations. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion on Resolution 2020-10, accept the donation from, was the Christmas Care Drive of $200 to be donated for the Rockville Fire Department.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second on the table to accept Resolution 2020-10. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the 2020 bills paid.
I'll make a motion to approve. Does anybody have any?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second on the table to approve the bills. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
If I could clarify, there's no conflict of interest, Bill?
Didn't see any. Consent agenda.
I got a question on E.
Which one, Jerry?
E.
If we could pull that from the consent then, and we can take it as,
Other?
not 8G, separate from consent. Just pull it out of consent.
Number E, right?
Yeah, just pull it out.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda, except for, we'll pull E as an Edward resolution 20-12.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? So Jerry, you want to pull it out for what reasons? We're going
Well,
to
I have a
discuss it
question
further?
on a paragraph that I need answered.
We should probably vote.
Page is that?
Let's vote on the, or unless we can clarify it and then we can get it taken care of now.
Well, be okay with me. Did I find it here?
I know it's in there, Jerry.
I know it's in there. I was looking at it.
We've already pulled it. You can act on
The rest?
the agenda.
All right, well, then we'll come back to that.
All right.
So there's a motion on the table to approve the consent agenda excluding item E. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Now item
It's on page 35.
Yes. The part about be it further resolved, the City of Rockville and the Ricori Trail Construction Board hereby assures the Ricori Trail Phase 3 will be maintained for a period of no less than 20 years. What do we have in writing about maintaining? What kind of, I mean, we're entering into something for 20 years? I thought the DNR was taking this trail over.
That's our hope. And then they will continue to maintain.
I would ask that we delete that paragraph.
Okay.
Well,
You want the grant?
what are we obligating ourselves? What, by,
Well, yeah.
what do they mean by maintaining? Do we have any,
The trail.
I know.
You can't abandon it.
Are we seal coating, crack sealing? What kind of an expense is coming to the city?
Yeah.
We don't have no dollar amount on what that could cost us in 20 years?
I don't have anything tonight, no.
Is that a concern of ours? I'm kind of concerned about
Well,
that.
I'm thinking we've been doing this all along. That's the way I read this. We've been doing this all along, and this is a new one.
This is phase
that not
3.
correct?
Phase 1 and 2 went through the same way.
But I'm looking at it this way, you know, you got the trails there, you know, the city, I mean, and all counties maintaining Wobegon Trail, doing their stuff in there. Now, I don't have a snowmobile, my brothers do, and they go on the trails. When you buy that snowmobile sticker ride, there's so much a fee in there that states in there that you can, that so much money from that license goes to help to maintain and groom the trails. Now, some people in cities have to buy a bicycle license to take a bicycle on the streets in some towns. Now, the county and this place, you are not required to have a license, you know, bicycle permit to drive up trails, right?
Right.
You know, why is there not a small fee? It could be whatever for a year or two, and that money that's collected be used to maintain these trails. Because the citizens, it's like you say, the water, the user fee, the user pays for the use. You know, otherwise the rest comes out of the county. You have a trail fund, we do in the city, and the county does for repairing these. I think to make it,
The trail is considered just like a city park. We don't charge a user fee for people going to the park. And the trail is the same way. Park is park. You're providing people recreation facilities. And so I don't have any more specific answer other than this is what we've approved. We're in a joint powers agreement with the other 2 cities.
I don't have a problem with the rest of it, but maintaining a trail for 20 years could get expensive.
right?
It's ours right now. 3 cities own it, and we have to maintain it. With or without this grant, we still have to maintain the trail that's been already made.
And this is a joint agreement between the 3 cities, whatever that trail costs is split among the 3 cities?
Yes, sir.
So the cost of this phase 3 would be split between the other 2 cities too, then, to repair this.
Yes, sir.
That would be that way.
This is just a continuance.
Yes.
Yeah, I follow you, Bill.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I look at it this way, if you're a user on this trail, like with other stuff, what's wrong with you having, if you're biking at a biking, rollerblading, what, that you have a permit or something that pay $5 or $10, it's good for 2 years, that money goes to pay Rockville, Colesburg, anything to maintain this trail.
I don't think we have a say in that. That's a DNR.
Well, I mean, we could check that, but I'm just looking at it that way, from that point.
I'll
No,
make a motion to approve Resolution 2020-12.
And I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second on the table. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion dies.
It does. You just threw away a lot of money.
Yeah, I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. Now we're not even going to get a chance of getting some grant money to finish the trail.
This had a deadline of, this was the deadline.
Do you guys understand that? This is a grant.
I'd just like to see something about maintaining this trail for 20 years. I mean, this might be a great thing now. Is it going to be a great thing 10 years down the road? That's my concern.
Well, the DNR isn't going to take it over if it isn't finished.
Mr. Mayor, may I interject a comment?
Yes.
I'll just interject a comment on the trails and the maintenance perspective of it. I think that comment is probably more so geared towards keeping it free and clear of brush, and you know that it can be used during that 20-year period. A trail, I will say, there's very little pavement maintenance that is typically done on trails in the first 20 years of the pavement of the trail life. I mean, ideally, it should probably be fog sealed once. It's basically very low grain. Essentially, it's very low cost. I mean, crack fill it maybe once and do one slurry seal or type of a fog seal over the top of it at the most. A lot of cities, a lot of places, trails aren't even, nothing's done with, as far as the pavement maintenance perspective of it, the things that you're referring to as far as the cost of it goes.
That's what I'm looking at.
A lot of times that's really honestly never done in the first 20 years. And I've been a part of a lot of those. It's not like they're going to come out and say, you haven't crack filled in 5 years, so we're going to take your grant funds. There's nobody out there policing how often you're crack filling your trail. I don't know if that helps you out at all, but.
Well, it does. If it's just minimal stuff, I don't have a problem with it. But I got a problem with if it's gonna,
Right.
So, Mr. Mayor, as a point of order, being there was dissension, we need to roll that vote, please.
Okay? If you'd call the roll.
just a minute.
Yes.
I'm torn on this thing. I know what you guys are thinking, but can you see my point?
No.
Is there some way we can get some
No,
clarification on this maintenance thing?
That maintenance is there. We're promising to agree between the three cities to maintain that unless we turn it over to
And this is what was done previous to the other phases?
for grant money, yeah.
So if we approve this tonight, we could get some clarification on the maintenance before we actually accept the money down the road? I'd be happy with that.
I can't. I'm not sure your question. We're going to submit this grant application.
Right, but if we submit the grant application.
And if we're awarded the money, then we get the money.
We don't necessarily have to, do we not have to then vote on accepting the grant money?
No.
My concern was when it came down, it's like when you get to major, on a trail, crack filling where it heaves up to fix it. That was my concern of spending money, because there's people that frown on trails. And
I
they don't
think
want
we're
tax
getting the
dollars.
wrong horse in front of the wrong cart.
Yeah.
Be honest with you, you as a city agreed to this joint powers long before I got
Okay.
here, many years ago. That was the time for this discussion, and you probably had it. You formed a
I've never
joint
seen
powers.
anything in writing, that's my problem.
I can't address that, Jerry. I can tell you that we have a legal joint powers with the other three cities for Rockville Trail. And we agreed to all those stipulations in that agreement. And so I think that's where this discussion belongs. Whether or not you want to apply for a grant, I don't know. I'm not if you want to ask for personal opinions, do I believe tax dollars should go for trails? Maybe not. But as somebody that is your representative, I don't want to turn it down if it's coming to our city though either.
I don't either, but I want to have a limit to what it's going to cost the city.
There is no limit. I don't believe for 1 minute there's a limit in the joint powers as to how much each city would have to pay to maintain the trail. If that trail blows up in a certain section, we got to fix it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'll roll the vote on the question of Resolution 2020-12, supporting the RTCB federal grant application. In favor of the resolution, in favor of the motion, Mayor Herbert,
Aye.
Jerry Tipple,
I guess.
Member Becker,
Aye.
Member Simon.
After some more clarification, I'll vote aye too.
Mr. Mayor, that roll passes on a 4-0 vote.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Marty. Department reports. Justin?
Mayor, Council, I don't have anything specific for you. I don't know if, Gene, are you planning on touching on the Crackville project, or?
I can look at it.
Yeah, so Crackville, Gene and I have been working together on Crackville project for this year to Crackville, essentially all the roads from that were overlaid in 2018 and 2019. And I put together a short little small bid pack, and that was sent out to bidders, and we'll be getting bids on that. So Gene and I have been working together on that. Beyond that, I don't have any report on anything unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin while he's here? Just a FYI, Justin, I'm going to put him on the hot seat a little bit down the road here on the RTU committee report. Justin, anything else?
No.
Gene?
Public Works, I believe you all have my written report. Nothing really fantastic going on. Turbo was out in the end of the plow truck. We did get the returned in-house. The other thing I'll note, we did get another bid in from IPS, a company that works with electronics, that lift station, they're out of Avon, Minnesota, about changing this screen and transmission. And the other thing is, we did get some complaints about slippery roads. We just FYI, we did increase our salt and sand budget, doubled it in the last couple of years. And much more. It's just cost.
Ice is slippery.
Always has been.
Yes, that's right. Any
I want to
questions?
clarify for Gene's sake and maybe mine, is I've instructed Gene not to be worried about the budget. His job is public safety and public works. Anybody wanting to yell about the budget, come yell at me, because I've told him to worry about public safety. We get a lot of calls about these slippery streets and slippery roads, and he's out there sanding. And I get just as many calls, well, not, that would be a lie. I get some calls complaining about how much sand we are using. The public safety is first, and that's his primary responsibility.
I would totally agree with that, Marty, 100%.
And I'll add to that township, while I'm not working right now, when the calls come in, we go up to extra sand down. Because the safety is number one there.
I would ask, got any plans for crack filling when opportunity presents itself? I mean, is this the time of the year when we should be looking at crack filling, or?
That's what the bid's about.
That's coming up.
It's coming.
We'll be receiving bids by March 1st, and it'll be in front of you for award then at the next council meeting in March. So, yep, springtime would be the goal. Spring, early summer.
Any other questions for Gene? Concerns? Thanks, Gene, for everything you guys do.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Administration, Resolution 2020-13, the issuance of sale or delivery of that bond. That's the one that we talked about earlier. I'd make a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
That's a no-brainer.
Ordinance 2020-106, updating the city fee charges fee schedule. I just want to, before we go any farther, just want to interject a conversation I had with Marty. If you look in your packets, the stuff that has been highlighted in purple, which pertains to water and sewer rate changes, that we postpone those yet until the mayor can be back and vote as well. Unless you guys feel something otherwise, I can't control that. I just want to make that so that's in the record and that it's been noted.
If I could clarify, I would ask that you approve of the ordinance 2020-106, updating fee and charge schedules with the exception of what's in purple. And that would be the core city rates. Those would have I'd pull them out of that fee schedule. And that, I know that you want to talk about it, but I did ask, the mayor did ask me to ask you if you're going to leave the January rates the same or higher. He asked if you'd consider waiting till he was in attendance. And I told him I would ask.
I'm not sure.
Same, or just the ones you highlighted?
Just those purple ones. I would ask that everything else gets approved and we will postpone action on those purple ones until.
Does this include the fire department rates also?
No, that's been set.
Pardon me?
That's been set.
That's Saturday.
That's done.
That's made clear to the general public that we are not charging for structure fires, emergency calls, medical
Well, we
calls.
sure tried. The correction was in the paper yesterday that it's vehicle incident only.
I've heard that, and thank you. I just wanted to mention it now, because there's a lot of people out there confused. And I don't want our fire department to have a black eye on it.
I have, I'm curious why he wants this withheld. After hearing the presentation tonight, I got no problem including this.
It would be one billing cycle we're gonna miss out on. I think what I'm asking, Member Becker, is, I would save some face. I said, I thought I could ask you to postpone that action, out of respect for his request. It just didn't seem out of line. And,
I'll let you guys talk about it.
It's up to the council.
I would ask you to postpone what I put in purple. Approve the fee schedule with the exception of what's in purple.
I make a motion to approve the fee schedule, except for what's in.
Is there a second on the table?
for discussion, if one of you would ask me to do that, I would do the same for you. You know, I need that support.
I don't see a problem with letting it go another 30 days.
Don, what's your insight?
Well, we gotta make a decision sooner or later here. You know, the mayor's got wants to put his, maybe he's got some more ideas and wherever to do it, but I don't like kicking the can down the road too much, but being he asked this part, I'll second that motion to do a next month, but no later. And if we're only gonna lose one billing cycle, we'll have to live with that.
There's a motion and a second on the table. Any more discussion? The only discussion that I have is I don't understand what's gonna change within a month. I mean, we all heard the presentation tonight. I think it's pretty clear, it's pretty concisive, it's exactly right where we had set before. But in lieu of benefiting Dwayne, I guess I don't have a problem doing that. I don't think it's gonna change. You're just gonna
Right, I don't either.
miss
but-
out, like Marty says, on one billing cycle. So, any more discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, or opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 1-3.
If we could let the record show that a roll call showed one nay, that would be Member Becker.
Thank you, Marty. Marty, you wanna chime in on this, number C?
Mr. Mayor and Council, recently we had a fire call at property 143 Broadway Street. This happens to be an apartment complex. In 2018, November, December, the council rescinded the rental ordinance, the Rockville rental ordinance. Part of the agreement to rescind was that all apartments had to be brought up to date with their rental agreements. That meant up through December of 2018. This particular apartment rental agreement has not been in compliance with that requirement since 2018. There was disturbing what? Conditions when the fire department entered the complex. People look at me, what's the city gonna do? What's the city gonna do? What's the city gonna do? I would ask if you would allow me to, in about 30 seconds, turn it over to our attorney and see if she can shed some light on it. I did call her, what's the city to do? Even with the rental ordinance we had on the books, we had trouble enforcing it. We were only doing inspections once every 5 years, which was very frustrating to the inspector. It's hard to keep an apartment complex up to date, up to compliance, if you're only inspecting once every 5 years. Some of the apartment owners had concern about the fees. I think there's ways to address that. I think if you got a good apartment complex and you're in compliance year after year after year, and you've got a clean-cut inspection report, I think the council could approve of if you have an A+ inspection, you can go 3, 4, 5 years without your next inspection. If you have a B, you get a 2-year inspection. If you have a D, you get an inspection every 6 months. I think the council should consider bringing that rental ordinance back, and with that, I'll ask Sue if that's enough. Even with that rental ordinance on the books, what could we do with this apartment complex being out of compliance?
Sue?
Well, without some sort of housing and occupancy standards in your ordinances, there's really nothing we can do until the building meets the level of a hazardous building. And to meet that level, it's got to be structurally unsound. So there's a lot of conditions that we're seeing in this apartment building that aren't related to structure. So there's absolutely nothing we can do since the rental ordinance was rescinded. I understand the intent was to preserve it and bring these properties up to the standards before, but the fact of the matter is the ordinance was rescinded. It's no longer in effect. We can't enforce it. So I think the council should consider bringing that rental ordinance back, and with that, I'll ask Sue if that's enough. Even with that rental ordinance on the books, what could we do with this apartment complex being out of compliance?
Sue?
Well, without some sort of housing and occupancy standards in your ordinances, there's really nothing we can do until the building meets the level of a hazardous building. And to meet that level, it's got to be structurally unsound. So there's absolutely nothing we can do since the rental ordinance was rescinded. So building code doesn't help us out here because all properties have to do is meet the building code at the time they're constructed. We need some sort of teeth. We need an ordinance that, at least establishes standards, even if we're not inspecting. When something like this comes to our attention, if we have minimum standards in an ordinance, we can then enforce it. So that's another consideration. I do like the suggestion that Marty came up with, that if they get a rating, then that's going to delay their next inspection. They get a little more time before they have to pay the inspection fee. I like that. That's an interesting idea. I haven't seen it put into play, but, that's certainly something worth considering.
There's an incentive there at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If a rental ordinance was in place today, what teeth do we have?
We would be able to terminate the leases if we found that they were not in compliance and did not bring the property into compliance. So there's a financial incentive for them to bring their property into compliance, because otherwise we can evict their tenants.
I will note, council, that over the last 4 years, I've had, I don't know how to say this, I've had former fire marshals who are on our fire department point their finger at me as the city and say, one day, somebody's gonna die. Last week's fire call, thankfully, nobody died.
So we need to update that or bring it back, or,
I think we should consider it. I mean,
I think
if
that's
you
a good, we
four-
need to.
If our attorney is in agreement that that is better than nothing, or if there's something, I didn't feel it had a lot of teeth when it was in force. I would get complaints about bugs, what do you call them?
Cockroaches?
Cockroaches. Leaky faucets,
Yep.
no smoke detectors.
I just had
It
a
was like
call
pulling
Marty
teeth
on
to
a
get
rodent
it
issue.
fixed. Stearns County Human Services would come into the office and ask me what I'm gonna do. You're kidding me. You don't have more authority than we as a city when we had the rental ordinance in place? It's tough.
I'd be more than willing to help out on drafting that.
So maybe the next step is to get approval to do a public hearing to put that back on the books. I don't know if we're ready for next month. Could we put something together and schedule March, April, plan for an April public hearing for consideration of a rental ordinance?
I think
It's
it's,
a single unit rental that had the fire, or was it a multiple?
Multiple unit. And it would be nice to have some clarification. If Sue has one, what's considered a rental? That was the other thing. I own a house and my lower level isn't being used. Can I rent it out to somebody? Is that considered needing a rental license?
I think we need to include all that in that.
That's where I'm going with this. So if it's a single resident, that's got to be inspected. But if another person lives in his own house and it's a rat's nest and he gets killed, what did we solve? I mean, you know where I'm going with this? I don't know.
Generally, yes, if it's owner-occupied rental, it's different standards, because the owner is there, you expect the owner to maintain the property to at least a decent standard that the owner is living in. If it's solely rental, resident, rental occupied, tenant occupied, that's when we really should have some safeguards in place.
So it's okay, we'll plan for a public hearing in April.
I think we should.
Great, sounds
And
good.
If it's okay, I'll use Sue and whatever staff, I can try to draft an updated rental ordinance.
All right, we got that taken care of. The connector road between County Road 138 and Highway 23. Marty, you want to get us up to speed on that again?
Mr. Mayor and council members, now, because I got Vince in the audience, I'm sure he's going to ding me if I'm supposed to be saying Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm not so sure. But Mr. Mayor and members, I've made some of you aware, or all of you, that the road that goes past Capitol Granite, we're calling it a connected road between County Road 138 and Highway 23. In 2004, the state of Minnesota offered that road plus a couple others as turnbacks to the city, did I say that right, turnbacks? Turnbacks to the city of Rockville. Rockville by resolution accepted 2 out of the 3 and not that one. They clearly denied that collector road between 138 and 23. In 2013, in November, the state of Minnesota sent the city a quitclaim deed for that connector road. As of today, I can find no action that we accepted that quitclaim deed. I can find nothing. Nothing's recorded at the county. I've got nothing in the council minutes. And so I did reply to the state that exact statement, and I included the resolution in 2004 that the city turned it down. They want to meet sometime in spring to discuss it. I think you should be aware the state of Minnesota wants you to take that road. I don't think you have to, but just be aware of it. Your arguments in 2004 in the resolution stated there is no city road getting us to that location. One of you stated that, well, we have a taxpayer that lives out there. This is the council action. I don't
We have
have...
taxpayers that live on a lot of county and state roads, so what's the difference?
So we're not asking for action tonight, but be aware the state of Minnesota, I believe, is asking the city of Rockville again to approve that turnback. And you're within your rights to say no. I don't know if I was to say spirit of cooperation, I'm not so sure what that means. I don't know if there needs to be one or there is one. You take it over, that means we gotta maintain it. It's not just plowing it, but someday that thing's
Right,
gonna...
exactly. There's seal coating, crack filling, plowing, repaving, whatever.
Question, Gene, how long does it take to plow that? It's not very long, it's just you gotta drive out. It probably takes just as much time to drive out there as to plow it.
Yeah, probably 15
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah,
Because we push everything to the one side, so it's
Right.
out of the driveway. You know, if you want to be on, asphalt it, you can shove everything in the driveway and go the other way, you do that a lot faster, but
yeah,
we try not to do that.
right. Okay, that's good enough.
That's all I have,
Not
Mr.
all,
Mayor.
not all the time.
Now, there are not, some council members get more snow than others.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way it works, though.
I noticed that, Gene. Thank you. Anything else on that part of it? RTU committee report. The RTU did meet on 2/8. A few things were discussed. There was 4 of the 7 members present. One of the things, a recommendation coming from the RTU is that the city council entertain having Justin, the city engineer, come up with a road management plan. And I'm going to turn it over to Justin right now to kind of explain that a little bit better. He can give you the price and what it all entails. It's a pretty thorough document that would support what we need to do, and it would be a live document, something that would have to be updated because roads are live too, they change. So, Justin?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Council. What this is called typically is a pavement management plan. We do this for a number of our communities, anywhere from small communities up to large communities. As communities understand the importance of maintaining their pavements, it's becoming a popular tool for cities to use. Basically what it is, it starts off with the rating of the streets, which I know you guys have done in the past. However, really a full-fledged rating of every entire road hasn't been fully completed since about 2009. We went out and kind of done some unofficial ratings and saying this road's good, this road's bad, but there's not really been a thorough rating and putting numbers down on paper since 2009. So as you know, in 11 years, those conditions changed drastically. So it starts off with doing a rating of the roads. It's called a PASER rating system. It's a 1 through 10 rating system, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And then within those numbers, essentially they kind of group the roads together within those numbers. And what it does then is it projects it out 10 years. And at the end of basically the end document is a document that you have that lays the groundwork for what needs to be in the next 10 years. So it's a 10-year road plan. It maps it out on maps. Every year you have a map for every year on, these are the roads that you should seal coat this year. These are the roads that you should overlay this year. These are the roads that you should reclaim. And it takes a look at it. It projects that rating out then over the 10 years because obviously the ratings don't stay the same. They change. They get worse every year. So it actually projects out a projection based on assumptions of what that road's going to be like in 8 years. Because it's going to go from, it goes quickly once it gets down into that like 6 to 7 category, or more so 5. It goes from like about that 6 to 5 rating down to a 3 very quickly. When you look at the graph of a life cycle of a pavement, there's a sharp curve there. So it stays really good and then it drops off real fast. So what it does is it really rates all that, tries to catch your roads by doing the seal coating, the crack filling, and not so much crack filling, the seal coating and the overlays in that period before the road drops off too far and you can't do that technique or that pavement management technique and have it be effective. So that's what it is. It projects out costs each year, what it would cost to maintain that and do those roads. It's, as the mayor mentioned, it's a living document. So I would see that if you were to do this, it would be something that the RTU committee would look at every year and would say, okay, usually what we do is we look at, when you're selecting your roads, of what you need to do for the following year. You look at that and say, in the next 2 to 3 years, these are the roads that are planned to be scheduled to be done, whether it be overlays or seal coats or whatever. You kind of look at that group of roads and reevaluate that small group and say, do we need to move these around a little bit? You know, maybe the ones in year 2 or 3 out are really getting worse than the ones that are planned for next year. So maybe you just shift those around a little bit. But it's minor tweaks. You generally have a layout and a program of how much you can expect you need to have every year to maintain your roads. And it also kind of gives you the groundwork for, like I say, taking care of maybe some of those roads that don't look like they're they ride good, but trying to put money towards those before some of the roads that are busted up and cracked, and aren't the best. Because your return on investment on those roads are actually better than your return on investment on the poor roads. I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough, but that's what it is. I know it was mentioned during some of the public hearings when you guys were considering your levies. People wanted to have a document. They wanted to have a good plan that they can see where is this money going, where are the needs, and how do you arrive at the number that you know you need. So that's kind of what the document is. I did show the RTU. I brought a couple examples to the RTU committee and we paged through it a little bit and kind of showed them what it looks like.
It looks really good. I mean, if you guys recall, our current road list is basically a spreadsheet with some colors on it, right?
Right.
Green, yellow, and red. And this is, it's a book, and it's got maps and pictures of the road, and it's very extensive. A lot better plan than what we currently have. And the RTU thought it was it's going to cost a little bit of money, but it's costing us money to do with the one that we have, and this is going to be a lot better, useful tool. And the map part of it, I think, was probably one of the bigger key components, because as residents are concerned about their road, they can come and look at this and they can see the actual map and say, oh, this is when my road is, versus a light item. And we just felt it was a good idea to present it to the council and go ahead with it.
You have a cost?
Yeah, so the estimated cost is $12,000 to do that. That includes the ratings, the maps, the report, and everything else. And like I said, after that, it's a matter of, I wouldn't see that we would necessarily update that document every year. Maybe every 3 to 4 to 5 years, we'd look at doing some sort of a smaller update. You probably want to look at doing a re-rating.
The RTU can look at it annually and see if there's any major changes, like you were saying, and then adjust accordingly.
So it's really
Did you say $12,000?
Yes, correct. Yep.
I would ask the council consider either, two things. One is you can approve a not to exceed number, or you ask Justin to provide a quote that you can approve at your next meeting.
I kind of would like to see it,
The examples.
an example. Are you looking for, you're not looking for action?
So could we, if he provides an example with a quote, that we could take action?
I think that would probably be a good
nice.
idea.
Be nice.
Then you guys can see it like the RTU did.
Yep.
This RTU committee, as far as I'm concerned, is probably going to be the most important committee we have because most of our money goes into the roads. I'd certainly like to see scheduled meetings for them. I'd like to see them pick a chairman. I'd like to see minutes, and I'd like to see it in our agenda like we do with the Planning Commission. Because I would take a lot of, this is something that I think you guys should be looking at, what he's proposing. And if you guys all decide this is what we should do, be my support. We as council people, I think we're spread really thin, and we need people like that to look this thing over, look the roads over, and give us recommendations. I would like to see some kind of a plan in place, because I've been pushing this referendum thing, and I'd sure like to see something by late summer, early fall of some of these roads and a cost, and move forward with this referendum and say, this is a 3-year plan, this is the money we need to get these bad roads up to date, and I'm sure hope that we can have the RTU committee up to speed and give us good advice. That's my opinion.
I think you're right, Jerry, 100%. In fact, I'll continue on, because there's a couple things that touch on that a little bit. One of the other recommendations, Gene, correct me or steer me in the right direction here, the committee, after evaluating what Gene had proposed to us as far as the street sweeping, the RTU recommends that the city go ahead and look at, or start looking at trying to get a sweeper, rather than paying the rent. Gene, you had talked about checking with some people about renting a sweeper from them, and nobody even wants to touch that. So with some of the stuff that's coming up as far as the maintaining of these stormwater runoff stuff, and sweeping, in the benefit of sweeping twice a year versus once a year.
It helps in the fall, allow with leaves going down the storm drains.
Absolutely. It would, in the long run, it would probably be a cost savings for the city. So the RTU is recommending that the city let Gene go ahead and pursue that.
Did you have a full representation of the committee at this? I mean,
We had 4 of the 7, I said that already. There was 4 of the 7 members there.
are you having scheduled meetings now?
We're going to, we've got one coming up, it's probably gonna be, it's gonna be a joint one with the city council and the RTU and anybody else, I think, Marty, that wants to come along. And we wanna do that a little bit closer to when frost is going out and the roads are starting to soften up, so we can get a good handle on what was going on. We're probably gonna look at, realistically, probably 4 meetings for sure a year. Minimum.
A year?
A year. And if we need to.
Is that enough?
If we feel that needs to be more, we'll probably do more, but I think that's a pretty good handle on what we need. The other was what Justin and Gina just talked about, the bid for the crack filling. We discussed that. Graveling coming up this summer, we did some discussions on that, but that's something that's gonna look at a little bit closer towards spring before we make any recommendation. And then the joint meeting. I think, Marty, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there like $140,000, $140,000 that's available for road work or whatever this year? But the crack filling and stuff is gonna eat up probably a pretty good share of that, I'm thinking.
That's true. What are you estimating crack fill?
Probably 20 to 25,000, somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay, so, I mean, there's gonna be a little money, but I think we're gonna probably, at this point, looking at, because of the cost of what some of these projects are gonna be, we don't know what Gene's gonna end up with blowouts, and some of that money can get used to take care of some of that, so we're looking at rolling the rest of that into next year.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
Are you going to suggest to council that for this streets, I didn't know if you're mingling this, the money for the road pavement management plan and the street sweeper could come out of that
It certainly
highway
could.
budget?
It certainly could, absolutely.
Oh,
Just an FYI with that street sweeper, when I did look for prices on it, there was only 5 sold in the last 2 years. That's in the whole state. So they don't come up a lot more. That's good ones.
So I think what you're saying is we want to be ready if there's one there.
Correct, yep. And that doesn't mean there will be one this year. There may not.
What did you say it costs us to have someone do it?
For the core city, just for downtown Rockville and Brentwood, it's $2,200.
How much more do we have to, I mean, do we have a lot of more roads to sweep than just that should be swept? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's a development that's out there, it was at 138, out there.
Hilltop.
That's required twice a year.
Just that one? Why would that one specifically be required?
That's from the DNR.
That was a stormwater management plan, is it?
Isn't there one out there on that addition that you just put that road in? Isn't that a stormwater management plan
It
out
didn't
there?
have a stipulation for sweeping.
That one's in the Sauk River Watershed District, the one up on, the
That's
Hilltop
the
Woods
driving
is.
force behind it.
Yeah, that's a requirement, and then part of the agreement is, and because it's retention by all filtration basins, basically it's more effective to get that stuff off the road before it gets in the biofiltration basins and plugs that up. So that's the benefit.
Okay, let's move on.
And just to add to that, I mean, we've got, how many of those ponds already? There's 2 out there.
We've got few, they would be used more, like I said, even in the fall, get the leaves off.
Absolutely.
The slow drains. We go with the skid loader we do now, but it's size.
It would be a good
It
thing.
works. I just
And-
don't want to get your hopes up that I'm gonna find one, I guess that's my big thing. It's a good thing. I know.
And that's, I think, all I have. Gene or Donnie?
That basically covered it there. And the little bit, when going back to what Brian stated, or just presented on that plan there in a book he had one at the meeting there, showed it really gives you can see the pictures, what the road and what it's gonna be, so we know every year if we look at it, it'll tell us exactly what we got there compared to looking at the spreadsheet we have now.
I think it's a nice tool provided.
Yes.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
It's a good tool.
Is that a one-shot $12,000 thing, or is that continuously got?
No, it's not a 12,000 every year, it's 12,000, I would say, like I say, it depends on how your roads are and how active you stay on the plan, but I would say somewhere's in that 5 to 10 year window, you would be looking at probably updating that plan. It's like a capital
Budget
improvement
we
plan.
have, is a 10-year one practical, or should we be looking at a 3 or 4 year plan?
I think a 10-year plan is good window. You might end up, you're gonna front load that 10-year plan. You know, meaning a lot of your needs are in that first three years, and that's what the
my
plan's
point.
gonna show. Yeah. But still, it's still important to look at years 6 through 10, or 4 through 10, because you can't ignore those needs either. And there will be needs there.
So Justin, I think you got some direction for next month, right?
Yeah, I'll bring back a proposal essentially for next month.
Perfect.
So you're not having a meeting now until we do the road tour, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
that's probably gonna be in March, late March or early April. Council action, appropriations, allocations, and transfers. Marty, do we
I
have
have
any?
nothing for tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Other?
We got this resolution here for election judges.
Oh, I guess I didn't see that one.
right? Isn't that on there? You have a resolution to appointment of the election judges?
We did that last
We did that last time.
Well, I wasn't here, just laying here, that's why I brought it up.
If you'd show up
Sorry,
once in a
Don.
while, you'd know what's going on.
You want to have a broken arm too? Huh?
That'll teach you for not being
Sorry,
here.
Donald. That was
Motion to
still left
adjourn.
At your station.
Second?
That's fine.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Who made the motion?
You got-